What is up, people? And how's everyone doing today? It's November 6th, 2018, voting day. I'm currently sitting in the school bus, going to make this video, talk about emotional intelligence, and hopefully you'll follow me on this journey of rambling. Although I was going to take some of my notes. I have several different books full of notes that I was going to grab one of the old pages that I wrote about this subject that I don't think I really did a video about, but I decided against it. Thought I'd just go off the cuff here, because is that a term, off the cuff? It always comes to mind, but I don't know. Anyhow, I guess the thing that spurred this whole video to start was when I went over to my son's school today. They had conferences for my two youngest, and so we went to the school conferences and then went to the library for their book fair. It's just selling they didn't have a whole lot, but a few books for sale and then some stickers off to the side. And there was a few kind of, funny little small bumper stickers, and then I found this one right here. Criticism, it's not for the weak. And when I saw it, I thought, that's kind of funny, and thought I'll just buy one of those. And I kind of pondered it for a minute, and I thought it's kind of funny hearing that at an elementary school, seeing a sticker like that. Because the other one I got one last year at the same fair. Actually, I just remembered it said sarcasm, and it had some sarcastic quote with it too. And I thought, oh well, sarcasm and criticism are both things that we're always taught to, don't criticize people and be nice and be kind, which are of course all parts of being a kind human being, something that I've always done. I've never understood how people can just be completely rude, and but this thought about criticism, I was thinking about it, I thought, well, everybody deserves criticism, and then I thought, as long as it's constructive. And then I realized it's interesting, we've created a different term just for that type of criticism. It's a mean well kind of criticism. And most of us are completely horrible at actually doing it properly. Like if we have a family member or a friend or somebody who maybe they're suffering, or we know that they could be happier if they would, listen to our advice, whatever it may be, whether it's quitting a substance or quitting an attitude or, getting something done that they need to get done. We all want to help each other is the point. And so when we criticize those we love, usually it's out of kindness, and that's our intention in our heart. We want to see them do well, but it turns into an argument and it becomes a personal issue with a lot of folks. But in order to properly cope with criticism, you have to have emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, it's one of the 8 or 9 or however many different forms of intelligence there are, depending on whose idea of the word intelligence you read. And often we're usually just hung up on semantics. We can only define things so much. We go by the words that we have in the English language. So having emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize how you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and also see this within others. You might say that it's similar to what people might call an empath, but it's not feeling other people's pain. It's not the same thing. It is being empathetic, but that comes as a result of learning through your own behaviors, learning to see through the eyes of other people. It's difficult to do, but it's possible to actually take the time and really put ourselves in the shoes of others and ask ourselves, is this person out to get us, or are they trying to help us? I was thinking on the note of being civil and being, responsible and respectful in our society and to one another, and I thought, it's funny because no matter how civil we become, we're literally one large solar flare away from complete chaos and looting and panic in the streets. The truth is, if the power grid went down, it would just be utter chaos. We're not set up for that. So let's just have a theoretical utopian future where we all learn to control our emotions and everybody becomes kind, compassionate, sharing with one another. And then all of a sudden everything, whether it be an asteroid or an earthquake or whatever it may be, all of a sudden we're thrown into a panic. How do people react? And you find that people tend to become a different person at that point. And so, not always. I mean, it doesn't mean that plenty of war-torn and chaotic areas, the people are peaceful and kind to one another, but only if they've lived that way for a while. If you are degraded down to having nothing, and losing your home and everything, you can become quite ruthless. And that's how people, we can change when we need to change. Sometimes when we don't need to, but we just have no other choice. An example, I guess, would be, take any man, who loses his whole family to war and then becomes an extremist, and people are like, look at this person, he's just out to harm others, and then you hear the story of why this person became this way. They completely lost it after they lost everything else in their life, and they figured they had nothing left, and nobody to talk to, and nobody would listen to them, and kind of no recourse and no way out. When as a human you feel trapped, you can set aside everything you've learned about kindness and emotion and patience, and just do what you need to do to survive. So I guess my point is that rather than making, we're working towards trying to improve ourselves, I guess, but also society through us as individuals. I guess each one of you is going to have your own idea about what you think is important for the future of humankind, society. Some people think, well, the whole thing's just going to fall apart and it doesn't matter anyway, so, dog eat dog attitude. Other people truly believe in a utopian future where we all come together as one whole world, and people can start to care and share and accept one another on a different level, and really it comes down to eliminating greed and profit margins and all this. But then when you take all that away, you take away the incentive for innovation and the initiative people have to go out and say, I'm going to do this amazing thing, maybe I'll become a millionaire. It's unfortunate that money drives so much of that. But you see, the money just really isn't the big picture. Money comes and goes. Economies are just based on, a dollar, which, like the U.S. dollar can collapse at any minute. It doesn't mean that everything we buy with it disappears. In other words, I'm focused on the resources that we have. So, thinking about how many resources we have available to us, then we can start to assess whether or not they can even be distributed properly. Or, I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't believe that greed is our biggest problem. I think that things are much more complicated than that. In other words, the idea that as some people hoard all their money and therefore the rest of the people are all suffering, even if you throw the money out there, you could print 10 times as much money and give it to all the citizens. That's not going to change the amount of resources that are available. All it does is sends the prices up on the resources that exist. The economy is a very interesting, frail, yet strong, I guess, monster. It's fascinating. It's us that make it work, So perspectives can quickly change when we look at the big picture. And I believe that our generation, if we start to learn how to understand why we feel the way we feel, and this includes many different realms, science as well as technology, as well as some psychology, understanding the cognitive reasons why we think the way we do, and catching ourselves when we are becoming biased or hateful, or whether we can't take criticism from somebody, who's trying to help us, believe me, I've always been kind of a stubborn person, it's just the way I grew up. You kind of have to be in this world. And it's interesting because I guess that's what inspires me kind of to talk about these things, is because I see so many people out there who are so sensitive that they can't even take a joke. They can't, they feel awkward and out of place in certain conversations. Like, nothing's taboo to me. My friends and I, we covered every damn base you can imagine. And there's that kind of crudeness with, especially most guys, I guess. And I think that that's just kind of, it's not something that determines us as I guess the point is that raising kids is hard. You want to raise your kids to be responsible, respectful, So if you don't allow them to be boys to be boys, if you will, and to go out and get dirty and get in fights and whatnot, that sounds ridiculous to some, but it truly builds character and allows a kid to decide later, okay, you're not. In other words, that's not going to affect the rest of your life. You're not going to be. If you're going to be a bully, you're going to be a bully, and if you're going to be a victim, you're going to be a victim. It's going to depend on your circumstances, but being able to protect ourselves is, and not just physically, but mentally, is very important. And that requires, like I said, emotional intelligence. So that means being aware when you're angry with someone and not letting it get the best of you. And when someone's angry with you, not buying into it and giving him your energy. When it comes to sadness, that goes both ways too. If other people need your empathy, sympathy, whatever it may be, give it to them if you can. If they deserve it anyway. If they're complete assholes and you don't like them, I mean, you can only give so much energy. That's just the thing. But that's the thing. I almost hate the fact that I feel for all people. I feel empathy for anyone who's going through life. And that includes everybody who's going through life. And I care about people deeply. I've tried to analyze where the emotions come from, the feeling of really truly caring when I see somebody who is suffering in another place, another country, even in my country, wherever it might be. The guy down the street who walks around, homeless guy, it's like, wow, I wish I could do more. Sometimes we're just trapped in that reality that there's going to be pain and suffering in the world. So that's the sadness part of the emotional intelligence. Learning how to cope with not just other sadness when they need help, but knowing when to say, hey, you've just got to toughen up and deal with it, and also being willing to open up to other people and share your sadness with them and to be honest about it. I grew up at a time where, things were starting to change. Like when my parents were kids, you were told to, be a tough, boys are boys and you got to be rough and tough, and that was just kind of the attitude that guys had. And boys in my generation were told, hey, you don't have to be like your parents, you can be more. We were told to embrace our feminine side, if you will. That was kind of like what was cool in the 90s, right? Oh, that guy's just, oh, he's just too rough, this, you've got to embrace your feminine side. And so guys started doing that, and then now it's like, oh, you're not manly enough. And that's the thing with society, the standards are always jumping all over the place. But so anyway, I've covered anger and sadness. But those are like two of the main negative emotions that we have. But self-loathing and self-pity is probably the one I should finalize on. It's one of the things that's hardest to break, is our image of ourselves as either failures or not doing what we should be doing or not doing good enough. And those feelings can be defeating, and they come and go. But if you let them get the best of you, then you get sucked into that, and you start believing it. You start thinking, oh man, I'm just a loser. And it's easy to do even when you're doing your best. And I guess I say that only through my own eyes, because I've felt that way. But I have people say, well, how could you possibly feel that way? Don't you have a happy life and, a great marriage and kids and love what you do? Like, yeah, that's the thing. Being a human is complicated. The way our brains work is, there's so many hidden emotions and things that we don't understand where they came from. And as you get older, you start to dissect your past and to better understand, oh, wow, this, event really did affect me a lot more than I realized, that kind of stuff. Again, you tend to blow it off in your early life because you're doing stuff, you're working, you're, trying to get yourself established in the world. And then once you do, you look back and think, wow, this caused me to feel a certain way. So that's the retrospect, the introspection, being able to look back on your life and into yourself and be honest with yourself. Once we've done that, once we've learned to harness our emotions that way, it's very difficult for us to get beaten down by other people in any way, shape, or form. It takes a lot for a person to actually anger me, but it wasn't always that way. It took practice, it took work, and it took a few times of me saying, why am I frustrated with somebody that I don't even hardly know, or maybe don't know at all, And then I really did a lot of years of contemplation on who's worth giving a shit about their opinion. And I decided that I'm only going to put so much energy into other people's problems and other people's complaints and other people's drama, but I'll do everything I can to be there for people if they need me. And that's the thing. I think that's what we all need to do. Butt out of other people's business, but be there for them when they need our help. And don't be afraid to ask for help, which is another one of my own failures. I'm very independent. I like to do things myself. I've always been that way. I don't know why. I'm trying to... It has nothing to do with, like, it's a stubbornness for the sake of, stubbornness. Even when I'm sick, I'm like, I can get my own drink or whatnot, I don't feel like I deserve to be, waited on or helped for some reason. And that's a psychological thing that we all have to break, too. Not all of us. Some people feel entitled. That's the opposite, you see. Because here's the thing. I've read so many articles about personality types, like, similar to mine, and one of the things they always say is, you've always been a people pleaser and you always want everybody to be happy. And I always think, no, I'm not like that. That's the one thing I'm not like. I'm like, I don't care. I do things my way. But then I start thinking, no, actually, I always like it to try. I try for everybody to walk away feeling good about something, whether it be in business, a YouTube video, or a conversation at the store. It is important to me that people... That a situation is, it's not about pleasing people. It's about not letting people walk away angry and frustrated, because that just drags down on society. Even when it's other people's problem and their arguments with someone else, it's important to try to walk away with a smile and a laugh, I don't know. I've rambled on for 16 and a half minutes about just a whole bunch of random shit about emotions, but I know that it sounds sometimes like I haven't really covered anything, but like I said, this is my journal, kind of, and I process things as I'm thinking, and yeah, I think I'm just going to end it at that, it's hard to get words out on some subjects, especially when it comes to that of the heart and of the emotion. I'm learning my emotions. I'm still learning how to understand who I am and how I really feel about things. And I still look up to the Zen masters, if you will, the ones who, have acknowledged that they don't know everything and that they never will, or that they are never going to perfect their, nobody's going to be calm all the time. The illusion of somebody meditating in a cave for the rest of their life, who the hell would want to do that anyway? It's one of those things, if you want to have excitement and experiences in life, then you have to take risks. And that's why you will be exposed to a lot of other people. And that's why emotional intelligence is important, because no matter how stubborn and independent you are, if you can't interact with those around you, you'll miss a lot of opportunities, and you'll miss a lot of friendships. And, yeah. So, know the heart. But that doesn't mean follow your feelings. That's something I used to believe, and I learned that that's flawed. Never follow your feelings. But that probably sounds harsh. I'll have to explain that in a future video. Talk to y'all later.